Hello, 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 YouTube. We're going to squeeze in a chapter before HT gets on. And then maybe, if I'm feeling it, we'll do an after party. Hey. Hello, hello. It is time for Chapter 5, Red Tide. And then maybe afterward we'll do a little detailed investigation into the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. Don't tell anybody. Alright, forbidden material. You know what? I don't want to run OT, so if they're not in yet, then I'm sorry. I'm getting started anyway. They can catch up later. Red Mafia, Chapter 5, Red Tide, by Friedman. Here we go. In May 1991, while eating breakfast at the National Restaurant in Brighton Beach, Emil Puzuretsky was shot 9 times in the face and chest. 15 diners witnessed the execution. "Ja nečevo neznano," they told all the detectives. "I don't know anything." Even though the killer had rummaged carefully around the floor with his hands and knees looking for the spent cartridges, some of which had been lodged under their tables. The reason for their silence was simple. No one in the restaurant wanted to be branded a stukach, a snitch, and risk a surprise visit from the killer, Monia Elson. After a 6-year absence, the fearsome hitman had returned to Brighton Beach to claim his warm spot in the mafia, the Russian mob. You guys remember that? The warm spot? Remember the interview with the guy earlier in Chapter 3 or something? He'd like to find his warm spot. Well, he found his warm spot. "There are a lot of rumors in Brighton Beach I killed Puzuretsky," Elson said with a laugh. "You can say I killed him to take care of business." Elson had spent most of his years away, stewing in a filthy, oven-like Israeli jail, to which he had been sentenced in 1984 after his effort to seek fame and fortune in the cocaine smuggling business had not gone as planned. Being marooned in an oppressive, flea-infested tent city for convicts in the barren, lunar-like Negev desert was hardly what Elson had in mind when he set out to claim his place in the criminal hierarchy. To make matters worse, he heard stories about his contemporaries in Brighton Beach making big names for themselves in the Russian underworld. He yearned to return home to Brighton Beach and establish himself as one of the most respected men in the Russian mob's power structure. Prison did bestow on Elson one piece of good fortune. He became the cellmate and bodyguard for convicted spy Shabtai Kalmanovich, cementing a criminal alliance that would pay big dividends for both men. On August 19th, 1990, Elson was released from jail, bursting with a lot of ideas about bringing some order to the mobocracy that ruled Brighton Beach. But first, he had some unfinished business to attend to in Moscow. Elson had learned while in prison that a well-known Russian hood had been spreading word that Elson was a musur, a rat. Supposedly, Elson had exposed some Russians running an international gun ring, a charge that, though he vehemently denied it, had circulated rapidly throughout the criminal grapevine. Elson was furious that his reputation was being maligned. "If he doesn't like one word that comes out of your mouth, you're dead," says an acquaintance of Elson's. I said, "Hey, Monia, you can't kill people for that." He said, "Yes, I can." He said I was a musur, Elson recalled to the man who was bad-mouthing him. "I wanted to kill him. He thought that because I was a Jewish guy, I had presumably left Russia forever, that it would be okay to play with Monia." As soon as he arrived in Moscow, Elson quickly tracked down the malefactor and, with a single swing of an axe, hacked off his arm, leaving him to bleed to death. "Half the criminals will think I killed for revenge," Elson remarked. "The other half will think that maybe he knew something and I killed him to shut his mouth." Citing an old Russian proverb, Elson explained his motive as, "Revenge is the sweetest form of passion." All right, that started off with a bang, huh? So what's a malefactor? That's a bad actor, right? Not like the kind we find in Hollywood, but a person who commits a crime or some other wrong. Hey, YouTube. So, somebody in Russia was talking shit. First, he comes and shows back up in Brighton Beach. And he takes his gun and he shoots a guy 9 times in the face and chest at a restaurant, in a diner. Nobody wanted to talk. Everybody said, "No, I didn't see nothing. I don't know nothing. I didn't see nothing. I didn't hear nothing. And I ain't gonna say nothing." Then he hears somebody's talking shit on him in Russia, so he gets on a plane and he fucking hacks the guy's arm off with an axe and then watches him bleed to death. Yeah. Sounds like a nice guy, huh? His business in Moscow complete, Elson, then 39, returned at last to Brighton Beach. This time he knew precisely what he wanted to achieve, and he knew how to do so. He quickly assembled a team of experienced hitmen, master thieves, and extortionists, a group the FBI dubbed Monya's Brigada, and dispatched them to take over a large swath of Brighton Beach. So what's a swath? It's a large area, right? Let's see. A big swath. A broad strip of something, yes. Vast swaths of countryside, you know. Or number 2, a row or line of grass, grain, or other. But that's not the definition he's using it for. He established his headquarters in Rasputin. If you remember from last chapter, that was the nightclub that was in a real shitty part of town, but it's just decked out. It got a $4 million makeover, where he received $15,000 a week from the Zilbers and a percentage of the raucous cabarets revenues. Raucous means loud. "I was the new epicenter for the organized crime, Russia," Elson boasted. "Before it was bullshit, it wasn't fucking so tough." Elson's braggadocio had a deadly bite. Now, braggadocio is nothing but braggart. You're being a braggart. Let's see. Braggadocio. There you go. Boastful, arrogant behavior. You're talking shit. Elson's braggadocio had a deadly bite. One of his first deeds was to murder Puzyretsky, who had been employed to defend a large Russian bootlegging combine that competed with the Zilber brothers for dominance in the gasoline business. Elson then methodically slaughtered many of Zilber's rivals, propelling the 3 men to the top of the Russian criminal pyramid. This was Monya's golden age, a few short years between 1990 and 93. With a small army and his savage determination, he seemed unstoppable, extorting and killing with impunity. "Monya was a nut," said Gregory Stasiuk, the investigator from the New York State Organized Crime Task Force. On one wire, Elson said to a tardy loan shark victim, "You are making me so crazy I don't know whether I should come over, kill you now or later." "Monya loves to kill," said a Genovese wise guy. "Oh, it's a Genovese wise guy? Why didn't I say, forgot about him, Monya loves to kill," says a wise guy. "He was a goon on a short, hot leash." Monya's brigada was soon becoming immensely wealthy, dealing in everything from coke to precious gems, which he allegedly smuggled from Manhattan's jewelry district to Moscow. A December 94 secret FBI intelligence report noted that, quote, Elson is a principal player in the control of the export of diamonds, gold, and other jewelry from the United States and other countries to Russia. A carat of diamonds can be obtained for $1,500 in New York and sold for 10 large in Moscow. Elson receives a kickback on every diamond and gold deal he brokers in Moscow. An unknown Austrian front company has been set up to receive the kickbacks. This concern has a permit from the Russian government to import these items. Elson believes this situation gives him leverage with other OC or organized crime players, unquote. At least one rival Russian mobster, however, refused to accede to Elson's growing power. So accede means to give way or to recognize, right? Let's see. Accede. Assent or agree to a demand, request, or treaty. And you could also accede to an office or a position. So one man decided he didn't want to accede to Elson's growing power. Boris Neifeld, once the underling of the little Don Evsey Agran and of Marat Balugala, two guys we've read about extensively already, had emerged as an estimable force in his own right while Elson was still confined in his Israeli prison cell. By the time Elson resurfaced in Brooklyn, Neifeld was shuttling between Antwerp, where he lived in a luxury apartment with his mistress, and Staten Island, where he resided with his wife and children in a sumptuous home on Nevada Ave across from a nature preserve. Sumptuous, that's a pretty cool word. I forgot to switch over, so I'll just stay on dictionary. Sumptuous. Not bumptious. What the hell is bumptious? Did I spell it incorrectly? Let's see where he resided with his home in a sumptuous. Ah, yes, I did spell it wrong. Sumptuous. There we go. Sumptuous. Sumptuous. Splendid and expensive looking. Now, I'm going to get you back to the text this time. My bad. Where he lived in a luxury apartment with his mistress, so he was shuttling between Antwerp and Brooklyn. In Antwerp, he lived with his mistress. And in Brooklyn, he lived with his wife. So, he's got two lives. Forget about it. It's nobody's business. So he lived on Nevada Ave across from a nature preserve. Neifeld came to prominence by running a heroin ring of French Connection proportions. He obtained the drugs in Thailand, smuggled them into Singapore, and then stashed them in TV picture tubes and shipped them to Poland through a Belgium-based import-export company, M&S International. From there, Russian couriers from Brighton Beach with valid U.S. passports bodied, quote-unquote, the heroin into the United States through New York's Kennedy Airport. Customs never looked, said a DEA official. Poland wasn't an obvious transshipment point for drugs. It's not Bogota or Bangkok. They shotgunned each plane with 3, 4, 5 couriers, all unknown to each other. They moved 8 to 10 kilos per flight, and it went on a good year before we caught on to it. Eventually, couriers expanded their operations to Boston, Chicago, and elsewhere, while the drug smugglers continued to make millions of dollars a plane load. Let's check the chat, say hi to everybody. Hello, YouTube. What's going on, everybody? Shanri, Mr. Zappa. I put Zappa on timeout last night. I felt all bad. I didn't know what I was doing. I was all sleepy. I had my cell phone. I'm trying to do something, and if you get your finger anywhere near the screen, that's a wrap. So, let's see. What do we got in here? We got 12? I'm surprised we even got 12. We're going to knock this book out. I want to get it out of the way. What's up, bad guy? Gonna make some grub and listen. That's what's up. That's all you got to do. You don't need to see. All right, let me get back to the story because it sounds pretty cool. In New York, part of the drugs was sold to Sicilian mobsters out of a dive in Coney Island, while another faction of the ring dealt the heroin to Hispanic customers out of the S&S Hot Bagel Shop. Oh, imagine that. A Jewish mobster using a bagel shop as a little connect there. Next to Katz's Delicatessen, that's funny, on East Houston Street in Manhattan. The DEA was impressed with the sophistication of the mobster's business. What's unique, said one official admiringly, is that these guys were actually controlling it from the source to the street. Elson, however, viewed his rival's expanding empire with displeasure. I can see this is going to come to a head. Elson versus Nayfeld. Uh-oh. Here we go. I knew when I got out of jail that Biba, or Boris Nayfeld's nickname, would be still in the ballpark. He would be a fucking problem, Elson said derisively. Everybody said Biba, Biba. Biba Shmiba. I said he was a piece of ass. He's a fucking nobody. And somebody sent word to Biba that I'm cursing him. I said, yes, I want to meet the motherfucker. He was a piece of shit. For this reason, I declared war. I said, he cannot be what he wants to be. He's a Musur in his heart. He wanted to be somebody. He has never been anybody. You know you want to be a godfather. You have to lead with leadership qualities. He don't have any qualities. Nayfeld responded to these taunts with a $100,000 contract on Elson, setting the stage for a massive gangland war. They were like two gunslingers, said Stasiuk, he's the guy investigating, who had to prove themselves top gun. On a frigid night, shortly before the Russian New Year in January 1991, Elson's men taped a powerful bomb under the muffler of Nayfeld's car. Following afternoon, Nayfeld drove the car to Brooklyn to pick up his children at school. As the engine idled, the youngsters piled into the back seat. Just then, a maintenance man pointed to an object hanging from the chassis. The bomb, which was designed to have been activated by heat from the muffler, had become dislodged and failed to explode. It could have taken out a city block, said an assistant U.S. attorney. Nayfeld wasted no time in seeking revenge. You know what that reminds me of? You remember the scene in Scarface when they got the bomb? They're traveling behind the guy, and he's got the kids in the car, and they're playing. He's like, blow it up now! Blow it up now! And he goes, you fucking piece of shit, and he shot him. No kids. Even Tony Montana doesn't do kids. So, Nayfeld wasted no time in seeking revenge. On May 14th, 91, Elson was speaking with some friends on the corner of Brighton Beach Ave and 6th Street in front of the Cafe Arabat, a Russian mob haunt. At exactly 3 p.m., a hitman sauntered up and pumped 5 dum-dum bullets into Elson's belly. I never lost consciousness, Elson insisted. I wanted to shoot this guy. You can't imagine how hot and painful the wound was, but I saw the guy, a black man, run away. I was going to shoot him. I didn't have the strength to shoot him. These fucking guys are rough. A friend rushed Elson to Coney Island Hospital. The bullets made 2 holes in my kidney, in my stomach. My bad. My liver was severed. My pancreas was shattered. 1 bullet lodged in my left kidney and exploded. The doctors removed the kidney along with 20 feet of intestine. Damn! If I had gotten there 20 seconds later, I would have been on this slab. They put me on a stretcher and I lost consciousness. Elson developed peritonitis. Peritonitis. You know I'm looking that up. Peritonitis. There you go. Peritonitis. Let's see if I can remember how to spell it now. Peritonitis. Inflammation of the peritoneum. Of course, how did I not know that? Typically caused by bacterial infection either via the blood or after rupture of an abdominal organ. Yikes. Alright, so what the fuck is peritoneum? Peritoneum. There we go. The serous membrane lining the cavity of the abdomen and covering the abdominal organs. Alright, so your shit is covered with a little sack. He got that shit busted up, basically, is what they're saying. He was fucked up. Peritonitis. Yeah, I don't want any peritonitis. No, thank you. Alright. Elson developed peritonitis. There was a lot of pus in my pancreas, which was obsessed. Not obsessed, abscessed. There was a lot of pus in my stomach, and the doctors said to my wife, he's going to die now. And they put a tube into my heart. Elson claims he was pronounced dead and wheeled into the morgue. But when I heard morgue, somehow I reacted. I twitched my toe, as if to say, I'm alive. They put me back in ICU. Then I had an operation. They told my wife I had a 50-50 chance. If I survived those first 48 hours, I might live. I spent 28 days in intensive care. My wife was advised to say her farewell to me. Elson recovered and quickly made another attempt at getting even with Nayfeld. One of Nayfeld's paid assassins, Alexander Slipinin, was a 300-pound, 6-foot, 5-inch veteran of Russia's Special Forces who had served in Afghanistan during the war against the Mujahideen, the Islamic fundamentalist rebels. Nicknamed the Colonel, he had tattoos of a panther and a dragon on his upper torso, signs that he was a veteran of the Gulag. He was an expert in a variety of martial arts and kept a large collection of swords and knives which he used to dismember his victims in his bathtub before disposing of the body parts. He carried a business card that said he specialized in the techniques of Mortal Kombat. Damn! You think that guy Rocky fought was rough. What was that, Rocky IV? Oh no. On a June morning, 3 shooters, including Elson, according to eyewitnesses and police officials, ambushed Slepinin as he sat in his 1985 Cadillac Seville on a residential street in the Sunset Park section of Brooklyn. He started crying, the big motherfucker, and admitted that Nayfeld had paid to kill me, Elson snorted gleefully. Breathing convulsively, Slepinin asked for forgiveness. We are not in the church, growled one of the hitmen. The enormous man tried to squeeze his bulk through the passenger door, but was shot 3 times in the back, the bullets carefully aimed to ensure that his death would be agonizing. Thrashing and moaning, he continued to beg for his life, but 2 bullets to the back of the head finished off the colonel. He was huge, big, and mean, Elson said. He was a monster, a cold-blooded killer. The FBI has to give me an award. A few months after the colonel was butchered, Elson received a tip that Nayfeld was planning to attend a meeting in a trendy part of Moscow. Elson's informant knew the exact time and location of the conclave, as well as Nelson's route to and from the gathering. A conclave, is that a gathering of people? Let's take a look. A gathering of people, I'm going to say. A conclave. A private meeting. There you go. A conclave has church implications, too. Like it's an assembly of cardinals. That's who elects the Pope. A conclave of hysterical gay virgins, pretty much. All right. So Elson's informant knew the exact time and location of the conclave as well as Neyfeld's route to and from the gathering. Elson gave the contract to kill Neyfeld to Sergei Timofeyev, who was nicknamed Sylvester because of his resemblance to the film star Sylvester Stallone, and his lieutenant Sergei the Beard Kruglov, two of the most vicious gangsters in Moscow. According to Elson's informant, Neyfeld's car was supposed to pass a high-rise apartment tower that was under renovation. Because its windows were covered with cardboard, an Olympic marksman hired by Timofeyev and Kruglov had to take aim at Neyfeld as his car approached the building by squinting through a peephole. But Neyfeld must have had a premonition, for at the last moment he pulled a hasty U-turn and disappeared into traffic. "It was Biba's miraculous escape," said a still bewildered Elson. "He had a lot of miracles." As did Elson. On November the 6th, 1992, Elson arrived in Los Angeles' Plummer Park. It was a meat place for Russian emigres who gambled their welfare checks and drank cheap vodka. Elson, who was there to meet a friend, suddenly decided to return to his car to retrieve something he had forgotten. As he walked back to the parking garage, a black man crept up behind him and shoved a pistol against the base of his skull. Elson heard the click of its trigger, but the weapon jammed. "Can you imagine if the gun went off?" Elson asked. "My brains would have been scrambled eggs." I can't do a Russian accent. I'm sorry. I know I always just keep I degrade into fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger every time. Alright, let's check the chat real quick. "Can you imagine if it went off? My brains would have been scrambled eggs." Elson spun around. Let me finish this part. Elson spun around and wrestled the man to the ground, kicking away the gun. The assassin grabbed it back and this time successfully fired it repeatedly, backpedaling until he was able to escape. Elson was hit in the left hand, severing a tendon. At the hospital, he gave a fictitious name and told detectives that he had fought off a mugger who was trying to steal his $75,000 Rolex watch. He later slipped out of the hospital without paying his bill and traveled to Arizona for painful reconstructive surgery. Before he left Los Angeles, however, another would-be assassin attempted to place an explosive inside his car. The schnook couldn't figure out how to wire the bomb. So wait, that's not Elson. It's the law enforcement source. The schnook couldn't figure out how to wire a bomb. The device exploded in the man's hands, blowing them off. Ooh, hoo, hoo. Damn. What's up, OJM? How come so many thumbs down? How many thumbs down do I have? Let's see if I can find it. I like thumbs down. They don't bother me. Let's see. See if I can find where my chats are. Or my stats are. 16 thumbs down already. Nice. I get about the same amount of thumbs down every time. Doesn't matter. There's it's just like Handsome Truth gets. Every time he does a stream, you get a certain amount of thumbs down. And I have my fans too. And I thank him for it because it doesn't matter. Nothing's gonna stop me some thumbs down. They're gonna stop me from reading or doing what I do. And the fact that any type of interaction with the videos pushes them up in the ranks in the algorithm, because even bad press is good press. You know what I mean? So if you had a video with 1,000 thumbs down and 2 thumbs up, it's still going to go higher in the algorithms because people are liking to watch it for the hate. People love the hate. People love the love. It doesn't matter to the algorithm. So it all helps me out. Yeah, right? If you don't have haters, then you ain't doing it right. HT. Words of wisdom. So what else is going on in chat? How y'all doing? How are y'all doing? Best thing I could say is the best thing to push videos up is to thumb them up or thumb them down, to comment, and then also don't forget about favoriting. Favoriting is huge for the algorithm. So I would advise you, HT, to tell people to favorite. Like after you're done your stream and it goes to a regular video that you could watch later, tell them to favorite that shit up. That'll boost you, man. Zappa Bagman, Nebula Beatniks, Shanri Ha, Radical Greek, Liquid Zero. We got the locals, the local yokels. We're here again. Alright, this is some good reading. I want to get back into it. This is a fucking gang war. This is the type of shit everybody loves. So, guy tried to wire a bomb to take out our boy. What the fuck's his name again? I forgot his fucking name. Elson, that's right. Guy rigs the bomb and it goes off in his hands. He blew his hands off. Whoopsie! Hate when that happens. As the Elson-Nafeld war dragged on, dozens of gangsters were massacred. Some were gutted like sheep, others had their throats cut. Some were castrated with crescent-shaped knives. Both the implements and the body parts became favorite gangster souvenirs. Oh, man. Imagine cutting off a guy's junk and keeping it as a souvenir. Whew, you're dealing with some fucking killers right there. Though Elson and Nafeld tried to enlist other influential gangsters to their respective sides, neither could gain a decisive advantage, and the bombs and bullets continued to explode from Brighton Beach to Moscow. At one point, Rafik Bagdasarian, nicknamed Svo, a mighty Vur from Soviet Armenia, tried to intervene on Nafeld's behalf. Svo was known as the diplomat of the Russian underworld, and he was so highly respected that when he was poisoned to death in prison some years later by Chechen gangsters, his body was flown from a secret military airship near Moscow to his native home in Yerevan, the capital of Soviet Armenia. Svo's funeral was held with a degree of pomp usually reserved only for members of the Politburo. So the Politburo, I think, is it's a bunch of government officials. Let's see. Politburo. The principal policy-making committee of the Communist Party, or of a Communist Party. And we all know what pomp is. Pomp is and circumstances. Ceremony, splendid display. I wonder if it has and circumstance. No. We'll check it out separately. Circumstance. There's a word you never use. A fact or condition connected with or relevant to an event or action. An event or fact that causes or helps to cause something to happen. There you go. Number 2. One's state of financial or material welfare, pomp, and circumstance. Alright, let's get back to it. So, this Svo guy was pretty loved. He got all this tribute when he died. Those are the benefits of being a gangster, you know. You get the people to revere you after you've already died and your life is over. So let's see. Remember, for the purposes of what we're reading now, Svo is still alive. Seeking to put an end to the deadly struggle, Svo telephoned Elson's vaunted ally, the Beard. "I love you like a son," said Svo. "I know you had a meeting with Manya in Yerevan, and I had a meeting with him. I had a meeting with him in Yerevan." So they both had a meeting with him in Yerevan. "And Monya spoke about killing Biba. I'm asking you like my son. I like Biba, and please, don't get involved in this." The plea went unheeded. Elson learned from another informant about the impending arrival in Moscow of Slava Ukleba, who worked for Neifeld as an international heroin trafficker. On a blistering cold day, Ukleba's hotel room was rocked by a thunderous explosion which obliterated 5 adjoining rooms. But nobody was hurt. It was wintertime and Ukleba ran out. Wait, this is Elson talking. But nobody was hurt. It was wintertime and Ukleba ran out of the rubble in his underwear. He ran all the way to Austria, chortled Elson. Then on July 26, 1993, as Elson, his wife, and his 25-year-old bodyguard, Oleg Zapivakmin, were emerging from a black Lexus in front of the couple's Brooklyn apartment, a car careened toward the curb. Uh-oh. The trio was sprayed with a street sweeper shotgun and an Uzi submachine gun fire. Elson, who was carrying a briefcase with $300,000 in watches and jewelry from New York's Diamond District, was shot in the back and thigh. Damn, this guy is like worse than Tupac. His wife, Marina, bolted from the Lexus and hid in the crawl space behind 2 garbage cans. A masked man leapt from the attacker's vehicle and pumped 2 shotgun blasts into the cowering woman from several yards away. 17 pellets tore through her face, throat, chest, and shoulder. An all-out gun battle ensued, with shotgun pellets peppering the entire length of the 75-foot apartment house, penetrating neighbors' cabinets and walls. It was like the Persian Gulf War, Elson recalls. More than 100 rounds were exchanged between the hit team, and Elson and Zapivakmin, who was only lightly grazed in the stomach. Now let's take a look at some of these guys. Here we go. What do we have here? At the top left, that's Evsey Agran. If you guys remember, we were talking about Evsey. And there's him laying on the floor on one of his not-so-good days. And the guy, that's Agran, yeah, he got gunned down. So, top left, Evsey Agran, Russian organized crime's first American Don. In the middle right, Agran was gunned down inside his Brooklyn vestibule on May the 4th, 1985. And in the bottom left, that's Boris Neifeld, strong-arm man for Agran, who later became a global heroin dealer and Monia Elson's nemesis. Let's see, who's this guy looking all slick? Oh, that's Monia. Monia Elson, the Russian mafia's most fearsome hitman. There he is. That's the guy that got shot 87 billion times and still keeps on trucking. Damn, I got respect for that dude. He's a fucking beast. So let's see. Who's this now? There's, that's Marat Belugala in the picture. Not the picture, but the card, the identification. You guys remember hearing about him? If you were around the last couple chapters. Marat Belugala. Let's see. Top right, Marat Belugala. Brighton Beach's second godfather. He took the American-Russian mafia global. Or I should say mafia. The middle left, Yuri Brokin and his wife, Tanya. Yuri Brokin was the guy they found shot in the fucking right next to his ear on his bed last chapter. Damn, that bottom picture looks like a Michael Jackson video, doesn't it? Bottom right, the floor at the Rasputin. The Rasputin is that nightclub we heard about in the shit neighborhood where they $4 million makeover. They got all these stars and shit. It was like the personal nightclub for all these mafiosa types. The floor at the Rasputin, a cabaret owned by the Zilber brothers and also Monia Elson's headquarters. So there they are. That's the crew. Woo! Take a quick peek, one more. So you got Agran up top. You got Nayfeld down the bottom. And we got the Beast, Monia Elson. You just can't stop him with bullets. Just can't. I mean, you can't kill fucking retard strength. Marat Belugala. We've got Yuri Brokin, the guy who was acting like he's the guy in the middle, acting like he's Mr. Literati, but really he's this fucking mafioso. And the nightclub, the Rasputin. Now here we go. Hockey superstars, the FBI, and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have connected to major Russian crime figures. You know, I used to watch that Detroit Red Wings team back in the day, and they had so many Avs, right? You can remember that? They had Sergei Fedorov, they have Igorov, and fucking all these Avs. I swear to God, they had like 5 guys ending in Av. It was a Russian hockey team, pretty much. So up top, we got Vyacheslav Slava Fetisov. That's Fetisov up top. Then the guy in the left, that is, let's see, Valery Kamensky, playing for the New York Rangers. And then Pavel Bure. Oh my God, he was badass too. He was fast. That guy was lightning. Pavel Bure, playing for the Vancouver Canucks in 1988. Sure, I remember these guys. I used to love hockey, man. Then hockey went on strike for a year. I don't know if you remember, but back in the 90s, fucking hockey was the purest sport. It was just fucking great. I like my Flyers. I'm a Flyers fan. Broad Street Bullies. And then they came back and they changed all the fucking rules. You know, they made a new crease around the goalie. Now you can't do a 2-line pass. And hey, go fuck yourself. I stopped watching hockey. Just recently, I started watching a little bit once again. So let's see. Who do we got here? Oh, look at that. Smile for the camera. Look at the mullet on that FBI guy on the left. Oh, dag, y'all. It's all business up front and it's the party in the back. So let's see who this guy is. What do we got? Vyacheslav Ivankov, the most powerful vur zakonia in America. He was imprisoned in the United States on June the 8th, 1995 for extortion. So the guy, you see him in the middle and the top, that's him getting lugged off. Damn, that's got to be a beat feeling. He's got that typical round fucking Russian-shaped face and head. Look at that side profile shot of his head. Looks like there's a fucking chunk missing, doesn't it? I wouldn't be surprised. They got these fucking heads like bulldogs. I wouldn't fuck with Russian people. There's 2 people on earth that I will have to back down to, and that's Russian people and Scottish people, because they're both fucking crazy. Don't fuck with Russian and Scottish people. I could tell you a story about a Scottish guy I worked with, but I want to get down to business here. Now, who's this guy at the bottom? Felix Komarov, the man the FBI says is one of Ivankov's top associates in America. Okay. Who's this guy looking all dapper and shit? He's like, yes, we have the good shit. Oh, this is great. This is great. So, this is Vachagin Petrosov, Ivankov's drug advisor and Denver restaurateur. And the bottom thing is you see that is a Hallmark card, right? It was easy finding a Valentine for someone like you. This was Ivankov's handwritten death note to the guy who wrote this book, Robert I. Friedman, and he even signs it from Vyacheslav Ivankov. He says, Friedman, you are dirty fucking American prostitution's liars. I will fuck you and make you suck my Russian dick. You gotta love these guys. Doesn't even hide who he is. Signs the fucking death threat. Oh, that's great. I will fuck you and make you suck my Russian dick. And he puts it in a fucking Valentine's Day card. That's touch, man. You gotta like that. These fucking guys. All right, what do we got here? Porky's. Porky's. So I remember Porky's the movie from the 80s. That was like, I was like 12 years old back when your dick would get hard just if you thought you saw a nipple. It's just that's it. Porky's was the shit. All the young kids are stroking the Porky's. Nobody would tell you back then, but now that we're in our 40s, we're like, yeah, I used to have that shit on all the time. Girls, what do we got? Porky's is a strip club here. What do we got? Porky Strip Club in Miami, owned by Ludwig Tarzan Fa. Wait, does that say Fa Inberg or is it Feinberg? Little spacing problem. Middle, a flyer from Porky's, and the bottom is Tarzan and Juan Almeida sampling the stock in a Swiss wine cellar. Let's see what that thing said. This fourth annual Pig Out Party, 2-day event, Thursday, May 11th and May 12th, 1995. Oh, yes, the good old days. Free drinks, free gifts, free girls, free sex, free buffet. It includes our famous roast pork. Be free, it says. Something, man of the hour invited, something. Special guest appearing live, nude on stage, Gina LaMarca, 1995 Penthouse Pet of the Year, International Supermodel. So they didn't go to Playboy Pet. They didn't get a Playboy centerfold. They're like, fuck that. We're going for the straight whore. Because if you're in Penthouse, you're just a fucking straight whore. There's nothing classy about it, though. Oh, I pose for Playboy because it's beautiful and it's classy. No. Penthouse, you're a fucking whore. That's the way it is. Gina LaMarca, Playboy Pet or Penthouse Pet of the Year. International Supermodel. 3 shows daily. Wow. It says down the bottom, special thanks to Porky's family and Mr. Bill Seidel family for giving me the opportunity to create Porky's. Love you all, Tarzan. So I'm guessing Tarzan's that big ass nigga on the right, right? That would be my guess. He looks like a fucking Tarzan. Alright. A little taste. Oh, let's find out. Tarzan and Juan Almeida sampling the stock. I don't know. Could be the dude on the left. Alright. What else we got here? Bottom. Tarzan and Juan Almeida. No, that's not it. I just read that. Tarzan being shown subs in Kronstadt. And yes, he is the big ass nigga. That's him. Tarzan being shown submarines in Kronstadt. Now, have you guys ever heard of submarines shipping coke and shit like that? I've heard about it. These guys did it. Crazy Russian fuckers. They pack a submarine. They'll hire a retired submarine captain from from the military and have him captain their boat running cocaine. The 80s and the 90s. I look back with such fondness. So what else we got here? Look at these dudes. The 80s hair. Tarzan and friend in Russia. Damn, look at those clothes, bro. The funny thing about foreigners, especially Eastern Europeans and Russians, like after the 80s were over, like from 90, 91, and 92, it still felt like the 80s, right? Like 90s didn't have its own identity yet. It's not till you got like 99, 2000 when you started realizing what the 90s were. But when a decade first starts, you don't know what the fuck what it's like. And these people would always be, it'll be like 97, 98, and they still look all 80s out. After, about 95, everybody realized what 80s was, and they stopped dressing like that, stopped acting like that. Like you'll see people with mullets all the way up to 95. But these guys, it'd be the year 2000, and they still got mullets. Or fucking rocking corduroy from the 70s. It's crazy. Look at those clothes, man. Damn. How much blow do you have to do to get a captain's hat like that? They were fucking tooted up. Let's see. An armored car bringing sacks of $100 bills for the Russian Mafia to be loaded on a Delta flight to Moscow at JFK Airport in New York. Ain't that fucking nice, bro? How would you like to have an armored car full of $100 bills? What would you do with that money? Would it corrupt you? Would it change you? I think it would change each and every one of us. Here we have Semyon Mogilevich, the man the CIA calls the most dangerous gangster in the world. We haven't really read much about him yet. Mogilevich took out a $100,000 contract to kill the author Robert Friedman of this book, according to the New York Times. Incredibly, now we're going back to the main text. Well, what happened in the last part of the main text? Let's see. In the last part of the main text, we had the all-out gun battle where the bitch got shot and all that shit. It looked like the Persian Gulf War, Elson recalls. I guess he survived that, too. He probably got shot, too. So, big-ass battle. Bitch got fucking lit up with the shotgun. Hate when that happens. Kind of ruins your day. You know what I'm saying? Incredibly, the two men managed to fend off their assailants. "You missed me! You missed me! You missed me!" Marina shrieked all the way to the hospital. She had 70 stitches, Elson says. "You won't believe how many bullets and pellets she has in her chest. To this day, Marina has so many bullet fragments lodged in her body that she sets off metal detectors at airports. Marina had been deliberately targeted. We know she joined Manya on killing sprees," observed the DEA's Louis Cardinelli. "Our CIs, or confidential informants, said that's the only way you could hit a woman. Moreover, if she had survived her husband," Cardinelli added, "Marina had the authority to order Manya's brigada to exact a swift and terrible revenge." Mrs. Elson refused to comment. Having learned of the shootout, Major Case Squad Detective Ralph Cefarello raced to the hospital. Elson was laying there, waiting for the docs to work on him, and I'm trying to question him, Cefarello recalled. He played his usual game. He said politely, "I'll tell you anything, I tell you. I want to know who did this to me, but I didn't see the shooters." Before exiting the room, Cefarello brushed by Elson's bed, intentionally pulling off the bed sheets. The gangster was stark naked. The word Monya, framed by two green bands, was emblazoned around Elson's penis. Oh, shit. I had a kid in uniform who spoke Russian standing guard. They had no way of knowing he was Russian speaking. As soon as I left the room, Elson turned to his wife and said, "Don't tell these pigs a thing." A short time after the incident, the FBI visited their bullet-marred apartment complex. Zapivakmin was sitting on their front porch, carefully surveying the street. In a confidential report of the meeting, the FBI wrote, Elson indicated that he knew who was behind the shootings. Elson was particularly angry because of the shooting of his wife, and he stated that he would not rest until he gets his revenge. He said that his revenge will not occur in the United States, but will happen somewhere overseas. Excuse me. Unbeknownst to Elson, his bodyguard had been warned in advance of the shooting. Uh-oh. A representative of the People's Court, the authoritative group of Russian organized crime leaders in Brighton Beach, told Zapivakmin, something like that. Can you guys say that? Zapivakmin. Zapivakim. I've been saying it wrong the whole time. It's Zapivakim. Fucking hard-ass names, man. What the fuck? Why'd I read this book? So, The authoritative group of Russian organized crime leaders, they called it the People's Court, told Zapivakim that Elson was going to be killed because he had committed too many unauthorized murders and extortions. They cautioned him not to interfere, according to a classified FBI report, but Zapivakim ignored the admonition and had seriously injured a member of the street sweeper hit team, who was brought to the same Coney Island hospital that was treating the Elsons. 2 weeks later, Zapivakim, wait a minute, look at that, they spelled it differently, no wonder I'm fucked up. Alright, look here, it's Zapivakim, here, right? And now here, down here, it's Zapivakim. I have been saying it right. They didn't write it, they wrote it incorrectly here. Motherfuckers, man. They need to get somebody they can fucking trust to edit these fucking books. Maybe they should hire me. Fucking cocksuckers. Alright, let's go. With Zapivakin's execution, the balance of power began to shift. Elson had very capable guys that he brought in as reinforcements from Israel and the former Soviet Union, said a Russian wise guy. But every week, one of them would get their heads blown off by a shotgun blast. Even Monya realized it was time to get out. However, it was not Boris Neifeld who finally convinced Elson to flee to Europe in November 1994. The force behind the street sweeper incident, the man who posed the first serious challenge to Elson's hegemony, and had more resources than any other Russian gangster who had come before him, was Vyacheslav Kirillovich Ivankov, and the dreaded Vor had come to the United States from Moscow to take over the Russian Jewish mob in America. Alright, let's check the chat. How dare they spell that shit wrong? I had it right the first time. They fucked me all up. See what's going on. Typo, yeah. No excuses. I would take that editor out and fucking shoot him one in the head. Maybe I've been reading this shit too much. Let's see. Not much going on in the chat. Won't you be my Valentine? Yeah, that fucking Valentine's card. That's great. Porkies, pork. Were they eating pork? The other white meat for the guys. Yeah, how could you be a part of a religion that doesn't let you eat pork? What is wrong with these people? I guess when an animal lives in and eats its own shit, maybe they got a point. I don't know, but it tastes too good. Shellfish. What kind? Yeah, Jehovah gets mad when you eat shellfish and other things, you know. He's very picky about what you eat, what you do under the sheets, all that. No worries, Shmeal. I don't have the tongue to speak Russian either. Well, thank you for the pass. Jews don't make me eat meat, President Goyam says. Cow just tastes better than leafy lettuce. On that, I don't care. Give me a fat artery clogging steak and I'll give up the sheet pudding years. The sheet pudding? What's sheet pudding? I don't know. Sheep pissing years. Ah, gotcha. I hate that fucking voice recognition shit. It sucks. Always fucks me up. Alright, here. Let's get back into it. This shit is too good. So, Zapivakim. Oh, whoa. Somebody's about to get whacked here. So what are they saying? His bodyguard had been warned in advance of the shooting and he didn't tell Elson? Huh. And a representative of the People's Court told Zapivakim that Elson was going to be killed because he had committed too many unauthorized murders and extortions. They cautioned him not to interfere, according to an FBI report, but Zapivakim ignored the admonition, that's a warning, and had seriously injured a member of the street sweeper hit team who was brought to the same Coney Island hospital that was treating the Elsons. 2 weeks later, Zapivic Mean was shot in the back of the head while changing a flat tire in Brooklyn. So they were saying everybody's getting shot left and right. Zapivic Mean's execution, the balance of power began to shift. Elson had very capable guys that he brought in as reinforcements from Israel and from the Soviet Union. But every week, one of them would get their fucking head blown off by a shotgun blast. So even Monya realized it was time to get out. So, however, it wasn't Neifeld who finally convinced Elson to flee to Europe, who had posed a threat to his hegemony. Hegemony is like total takeover. Let's look it up. What the fuck? Hegemony. Ruling or dominant in a political or social context. Okay, so he means you running shit. You're dominant. So he was a threat to his dominance, this guy. But it was found out, let's see. It was found out that the real guy who put up this hit that took him, that fucked up him and his wife, was this guy with a mouthful of a name, Vyacheslav Kirillovich Ivankov. And the dreaded Vur had come to the United States from Moscow to take over the Russian Jewish mob in America. What was the Vur? Wasn't a Vur one of those people in the gangs from the gulags? I think so. You guys want to check it out anyway? Let's see. Russian Vur. I can't type for shit. It's a thief in Russian. The Vuri. Super Mafia. They're thieves are the highest class in the Russian Mafia. And the Vur are the top. Okay. Let's see what happens now. Ivankov, the guy that ordered the hit, the street sweeper hit. Ivankov had begun his outlaw career in the back alleys of Moscow in the early 1960s. By age 15, he was a cocky, bare-knuckled street brawler who beat up people for the fun of it. His hooliganism eventually attracted the attention of a large criminal organization headed by a notorious gangster named Gennady the Mongol Kurkov, who specialized in turning Soviet star athletes and martial arts masters into extortionists. Under Kurkov's tutelage, Ivankov was trained to shake down black marketeers, bribe-taking bureaucrats, and thieving store managers. All of them... Oh, where you going? Where you going? That shit jumped on me, sorry. Damn, that jumped a long way. Sorry about that, guys. I think I hit a key. Yes, I hit a serious key, because that shit jumped. Back in my stoner days, I would have kept on reading and wouldn't even have known anything happened. Ah, here we go. So Ivankov liked to beat the shit out of people for no fucking reason whatsoever. He attracted the mafia's attention. They recruited him, and now his specialty was corrupting martial artists and people in professional sports, black marketeers, bribe-taking bureaucrats, and thieving store managers, all of them underground millionaires who could hardly risk reporting thefts to the state. Ivankov's crew invaded their homes, dressed as Soviet militiamen, armed with forged identification papers and search warrants. This militia would confiscate the victim's valuables, inventory the goods, and order the owner to show up in court the next day for further questioning. Of course, the merchandise would disappear along with Ivankov, a sophisticated racketeer for his day. So they would go in there, they would take all his shit and make an inventory of it like they're putting it on layaway for him. Tell him to show up to court. They impersonated Soviet militiamen. And then they just disappeared. You're beat. And then guy shows up to court. He says, "Where's my shit? This shit is vicked, bitch." A sophisticated racketeer for his day, the Mongol, also added intelligence and counterintelligence wings to his operations, a lesson Ivankov would not forget. With a taste for theatrics, the young Ivankov set out to build a mystique around himself. He expropriated the name of the legendary Russian bandit Yapanchik, which literally means the little Japanese in Russian. The original Yapanchik, whose given name was Mishka Vinitsky, ran the seamy, doesn't that mean like filthy, dirty? The seamy Jewish underworld in the pre-revolutionary Black Sea port of Odessa. Let's check it out. Seamy. Sordid and disreputable. Sordid is like the worst type. Sordid means like dirty. Involving ignoble actions and motives, arousing more distaste and contempt. So, seamy is like immoral. Sordid, he's like immoral. Ignoble means like immoral. Not honorable in character or purpose. So here we go with the Jewish thing arises once again. Let's see. The Jewish underworld. The original Yaponchik, whose given name was Mishka Vinitsky, ran the seamy Jewish underworld in the pre-revolutionary Black Sea port of Odessa. Yaponchik and his gang became folk heroes when they joined the Red Army during the Revolution. Gang members tattooed their chests with the communist Red Star. Instead of being rewarded for their revolutionary zeal, however, they were imprisoned by the Bolsheviks soon after the war. Yaponchik has since been the subject of many books and films, most notably Benya Kirk, a 1926 Soviet Yiddish-language silent film written by Isaac Babel. Ivankov's own career was temporarily derailed in 1974 when the manager of a Moscow cafe complained to the real militia about his extortion demands. By the way, back about that tattoo thing, he was before 1926. If you were getting a tattoo before the 20s, you are a badass, because they were unheard of back then. So Ivankov's own career was temporarily derailed in 74 when the manager of a Moscow cafe complained to the real militia about his extortion demands. An entire detachment of Soviet militiamen was dispatched to apprehend Ivankov, who was found hiding in his car in a Moscow suburb. A sensational gun battle ensued, and Ivankov made a daring getaway. The shootout only enhanced his growing legend as a social bandit who stole from the wealthy parasites living off the workers. Ivankov also distinguished himself for his bravado. While the USSR had plenty of common criminals, they virtually never used weapons against the authorities. So this guy, he's in a clique all his own, a class all his own. Ivankov quickly became the target of one of the biggest manhunts in Soviet history. After 6 months on the run, the weary brigand, that means criminal, finally turned himself in, claiming that he was not a criminal at all, but a paranoid schizophrenic. The more serious charges against him were dropped, and he was sentenced to 5 years in a Soviet psychiatric detention hospital. Eventually, wearying of feigning mental illness, feigning means faking, Ivankov asked to be retested and was subsequently sent to a penal colony. There, he was quickly inducted into the Brotherhood of the Zakonye. After he was released from prison, Ivankov went back to work for the Mongol, becoming his senior associate. During the next 2 years, Ivankov committed hundreds of extortions and armed robberies, leaving behind him a long trail of mayhem and acts of mindless savagery. In 1981, for example, Ivankov and his crew broke into the apartment of a well-to-do black marketeer, brandishing their weapons. Handcuffing the terrified man to a bathroom radiator, Ivankov threatened to douse him with acid if he didn't pay back an alleged debt. With a gun jammed to his forehead, he was forced to sign a promissory note of 100,000 rubles. Ivankov then stole a Dutch master's painting. Everybody that likes blunts knows about Dutch masters. A stamp collection, and 3,000 rubles. Ivankov was arrested for the home invasion in 1982 and charged with a robbery, aggravated assault, and extortion, for which he was sentenced to 14 years in a maximum security prison camp in Siberia. Oh, no thanks. Nah, I'll pass. I'll go back to the psych ward, thanks. Because several of those arrested with him were famous Soviet athletes who had turned to crime, the authorities saw to it that the case received no publicity. So maybe he involved these athletes for a reason, huh? No publicity. Back in prison, the despotic Ivankov once again became the top vor, enforcer, and kingpin. He stabbed one inmate in the back and clubbed a prison guard over the head with a metal stool. After several of his victims died, he was placed in a brutal punishment cell for a year. But the murderers did not add time to Ivankov's prison sentence because in the code of the quote-unquote zone, or the gulag, the victims had brought their deaths on themselves by failing to obey the code of ethics of the thieves in law. So even the criminals who are running the gulags didn't add time because there was a code. There is honor amongst thieves. Even from prison, Ivankov was able to maintain control over the vast Vladivostok region in the Russian Far East and increased his criminal power by establishing business enterprises as far away as Moscow, from which he received regular and substantial income. Yeah, over there, Siberia is on the other side of Moscow. Moscow's close to Europe, relatively. And where he is in Siberia, that's like across the entire expanse of the United States plus. Probably the size of Canada between Moscow and Vladivostok. Once, with the help of 2 Russian accomplices from Toronto, he persuaded several major Russian banks and investors to buy $5 million worth of shares in a phony Siberian gold mining company. One of the Russian banks sent a hitman to Toronto to terminate Ivankov's co-conspirators, but the Mounties arrested him. While Ivankov served out his sentence in the frigid wastelands of the USSR's vast penal colonies, major changes were taking place behind closed doors in Soviet crime and government. As early as the mid-1980s, the KGB had notified the Grey Cardinals around Politburo boss Konstantin Chernenko, and the Soviet Union's socialist economy was doomed. Chronic corruption, inefficiency, and the enormously expensive arms race with the United States had bankrupted Lenin's revolution. The KGB recommended 2 options. One was a first-strike nuclear attack on the West, which was seriously considered by xenophobic elements who couldn't bear the prospect of losing the Cold War. The second option was to loot the bountiful motherland of its remaining wealth. During Gorbachev's reign, the KGB began to hide Communist Party funds abroad, according to top-level Western and U.S. intelligence sources. The KGB subsequently set up some 2,000 shell companies and false flag bank accounts, some as far away as Nevada and Ireland. Over the next 11 years, perhaps as much as $600 billion was spirited out of the country in the greatest looting of a nation in world history. And who was behind it, guys? Who was behind it? Russian Jews. Shh, don't tell anybody. We're not supposed to know this stuff. $600 billion. Do you know what that is, guys? That is 600,000 million. So if you had briefcases full of $1 million each, that's 600,000 briefcases of $1 million each. 600 billion. Damn. That's a lot of money, especially back then. No matter what happened to Russia during a political transition from communism to quasi-market economy under perestroika, the party bosses had effectively guaranteed that they would continue to control key state resources and property. Stealing such a massive amount of wealth, however, turned out to be a larger job than anyone had expected. The KGB ran out of people to sequester assets, so they expanded their operation to the criminal mafia, explained Richard Palmer, a 20-year veteran of the CIA whose final assignment was as a station chief in the former Soviet Union from 1992 to 1994. In its haste to stash party funds, the KGB modernized the relatively small Soviet mafias, which had previously been based along neighborhood, regional, and ethnic lines. They were outfitted with everything from the latest high-tech computers to sophisticated communications gear. After communism crumbled, many KGB men, military officers, and government officials went to work for the emerging mafia organizations. Young Russian entrepreneurs sporting MBAs from the best schools in Russia and the West also swelled their ranks. All right, let's take a quick look at the Chatsky. Hey, how you doing? So what's going on here is the mafia went from small time to big time. Government money came in and poured in, and these government officials used the mafia to filch everything they could from the government. So if you remember, in communism, everything is owned by the state, by the government. And whoever runs the government owns the state. And who ran the government? Jewish interests, big time. Big time. When Bolshevism first started in 1917, like 75% of the leadership of the Bolshevik Party were Jewish. And then later on, after Stalin, you had these billionaires, these, what do they call them? Well, let's just say billionaires who ran shit. And they just bought officials and they ran the government through it. Now that the Soviet Union was about to collapse in terms of communism, and control of the state no longer guaranteed control of all the assets, what these people did, the billionaires did, is they got the mafia, outfitted them with all these high-tech things, and now they're going to use the mafia to basically steal everything that they owned through the government previously, but now they're going to own everything privately. All right? Slick. Money talks and bullshit walks. Let's check the chat here. Moscow is in Europe. Amish fits better. Ah, yes, the Swedes. You gotta watch those tricky Swedes. Same is gonna happen here, if not already in the works. I wouldn't rule it out. If you guys looked up Edgar G. Griffin's interview with a guy named Norman Dodd, you'll see that the purpose is because the Soviet Union, former Soviet Union, and the United States are pretty much controlled by the same billionaires. And oligarchs was the word I was looking for before. And their mission was to slowly change the United States to communism so that it can be comfortably merged with the Soviet Union. And there you go, world government. Right? It all makes sense. World government is what they want. This merging of the Soviet Union with the United States. You see that the Soviet Union is coming closer to what the United States is, and they're both heading this way. The United States is heading more towards communism. The communism that they had is heading more towards capitalism, and it's going to merge into a blend of the two. So I'm going to give you guys a link of the Norman Dodd interview. This, guys, is big time. Norman Dodd on tax-exempt foundations. I'm giving you guys something really big time here. What are the tax-exempt foundations, you say? You ask your Uncle Shmeal. Norman Dodd. All right, there you go. Norman Dodd was a guy who was set up to investigate the tax-free foundations under the Church Committee. The Church Committee was investigating un-American activities. And what they found out was that through the tax-exempt foundations, you know what they are, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, quote unquote, and there's 100 of them. This is where the oligarchs put their money as a tax dodge. So if you think you're raising the taxes on the rich, it's not going to work. The rich have ways of avoiding taxes. All you're going to do is fuck yourself. All you're going to do is fuck people who are in the high middle class who aren't oligarchs. So don't think that's going to happen. And through these tax-exempt foundations, they run organizations like the Council on Foreign Relations, the International, what is it? In the sister group of the International Institute for International Affairs. All right, that's what it is. The Royal Institute. Thank you. The Royal Institute for International Affairs. I've got 10 years of information in my mind. I got it. So it's hard to straighten it out sometimes. Rothschild started these roundtable groups. Out of the roundtable groups came the Royal Institute on International Affairs. And this is all in Carol Quigley's books, The Tragedy of Hope, and more importantly, the Anglo-American establishment. I'm giving you guys shit that is just, you're not going to hear anywhere else. And if you follow me through and read those books and you listen to the videos that I put up, I don't put them up for nothing, you will have a fucking insight on what's going on, and this world will start to make sense to you. That confusing mess of bullshit will start to actually make sense. So, Royal Institute of International Affairs spawned off the Council on Foreign Relations, which runs the United States. And it's through these tax-free foundations that they give their ideas on how to run shit. Did you ever see the videos of Hillary Clinton in front of the Council on Foreign Relations? Thanks, now we don't have to go so far to be told what we should be doing. Where Dick Cheney came and he had a speech in front of the CFR, Council on Foreign Affairs, and he says, Council on Foreign Relations. Foreign Affairs is their newspaper. And he says in front of the CFR, he says, thanks, guys. I've been a director of the CFR for a long time, but I didn't mention that when I was running. Yeah, when he was running for vice president, he made sure he didn't mention that. So, the Council on Foreign Relations, if you notice, Hillary Clinton is a Democrat and Dick Cheney is a Republican. Wow, how can they both be part of the same outfit? It's because parties don't mean anything to these people. Parties only mean something to the dummies like us who buy into Republican versus Democrat. It's fake. It's fake as the old WWF, now the WWE. It's just as fake can be. You know how the wrestlers go out and they put on a fucking show for the audience and they act like they hate each other? Well, when the match is over, they're fucking arm in arm. Hey, buddy, good match, you know. How's the kids? How's the wife and kids? It's the same thing with Republicans and Democrats. Don't believe the hype. All right, that's enough of that. Let's get back into it so I can finish on time. So, a whole bunch of money came into the Mafia by the oligarchs to help them steal from the Soviet Union, who they knew was going down. By the early 1900s, organized crime in the Soviet Union had evolved into a diabolical troika. That means three things. Consisting of gun-wielding mobsters and vors, nomenclatura types, and the black marketeers that tailed them like pilot fish. If you ever see pilot fish, they attach to a fish. You ever see those little fish that follow sharks around all the time? That's a pilot fish. Generally. And many current and former members of the government, military, and security services. So black marketeers are following around like pilot fish. You ever see those? The pilot fish are cool. No matter where the fish goes, they stay right with them and stick right to them, basically. There are other ones that actually adhere themselves to the fish. But the pilot fish, they just keep pace with them. So when a shark attacks something or the big fish eats something, they pick up all the crumbs and shit and they stay with them. They make a living off of them. And that's what the black marketeers were doing. That's an excellent analogy. And many current and former members of the government, military, and security services. Nevertheless, Vurs like Ivankov still represented the pinnacle of organized crime. Like made guys in the American La Cosa Nostra, Russia's 800 thieves-in-law held varying degrees of position and power, depending on their abilities. A Vur could reign over a region as vast as Siberia, with a representative or supervisor, or a smotriaskiv. Oh my God. Smotriashki. Accountable to him in every regional city in which he had influence. A Vur might control many mafia groups simultaneously, head an association of gangs, or lead a single gang. Some thieves-in-law might be part of the supply group, Obezpečenyi, or the security group, the Bezopasnosti, in a mafia organization. By the mid-1980s, there were nearly 9,000 criminal gangs in Russia with 35,000 members. During quote-unquote privatization, like I told you, they're selling everything off to private hands, and the oligarchs grabbed everything. The period when the government put everything from the great oil and gas giants to hotels in downtown Moscow up for sale. Organized crime and the Russian government continued their mutually beneficial relationship. The criminals needed export licenses, tax exemptions, below market rate loans, business visas, and freedom from arrest and prosecution for their crimes. So you got this little is a perfectly what do they call it? When you work together. So the mobsters needed the government officials to be able to sell the shit to them, not arrest them, give them visas and all the other things they mentioned, below market loans, visas, and the freedom from arrest. And the mafia guys needed the business people, and the business people needed the mafia guys to work together so they can get a piece of these businesses that they're selling off. So it's a mutually beneficial relationship. There's the word oligarchs. I see it. All of this and more was available from corrupt bureaucrats, especially since inflation had wiped out the savings of everyone in Russia who wasn't participating in the grab. A dozen or so oligarchs took over vast state properties and became among the wealthiest men in the world. See, would your loyal host lie to you? No, I'm not going to lie. I tell the truth. I tell the truth. Let's see. So the oligarchs were taking shit over, became some of the wealthiest men in the world, and we know that basically 9 out of every 10 oligarch is Jewish. Okay? They have Russian-sounding names, but they are not the Russian. They are Jewish. This is different. You understand? As for law and order, police officers, for example, who didn't steal or take bribes were unlikely to be able to feed their families. Everything was crooked from top to bottom. A survey of Muscovites, that's people who live in Moscow, conducted in September 1994 by the Russian Academy of Sciences, revealed that 70% of the respondents would not ask a Moscow police officer for help when threatened by a crime. That's deep, man. Soon, 9 leading mafia organizations controlled more than 40% of Moscow's economy. Some experts say the figure is at least 80%. Practically every business, from curbside kiosks to multinational corporations, paid protection money. In 1917, we had the Bolshevik Revolution, and all the rules changed, a Russian banker declared. By the way, bankers on that level are the lowest of the low on the planet Earth. In the late 1980s, we had a Mafia revolution, and the rules changed again. If you're a businessman, you can either pay the mob, leave the country, or get a bullet through your brain. Russian criminal groups penetrated virtually every level of the government, from Russia's parliament, the Duma, to President Yeltsin's inner circle. Even the immense arsenals of the Soviet armed forces were plundered. I heard Boris Yeltsin was drunk all the fucking time. Hey, he's Russian. Maybe it's true, maybe not, but I think yes. But in the gold rush years of the late 1980s and early 1990s, competition for the Soviet Union's booty inevitably led to gangland turf wars. The Chechen Mafia, or the Mafiya, which had always been a powerful force in Moscow's turbulent underworld, called in reinforcements from their mountain redoubt, that's like a stronghold, in the Republic of Chechnya. Relentless as the Golden Horde that had thundered across the Russian steppes and sacked the city of the Middle Ages, the Golden Horde refers to the Mongols. The group came close to gaining control over the city's rackets, leaving the formerly dominant Jewish, Georgian, Armenian, and Slavic mobs in disarray. Corrupt Soviet oligarchs started preparing their departure in order to avoid the carnage. By the way, you guys, I know there are a lot of you who know about the Khazarian conspiracy, or the story about how the Khazars became Jews overnight, how they converted to Judaism because they had their choice between their Muslim enemies and their Christian enemies, and they decided to go neither way, and they decided overnight the king or the leader of the Khazars decided to become Jews overnight. This was in something like the 400s or something like that, somewhere a long time ago. No, it was after Islam, so Islam was 732, so you're talking the 800s where the Khazarians became Jews. The ethnic makeup of the Khazars, if you think they were in eastern southern Russia, so they're in between Eastern Europe's over here, so Russia is up here, and then you had the Mongols came from this side, and you had the Muslims to the south. So they are part Turks, part Turkic, part Mongols, part Russian, and part Slavic. So they are a mix of just about everything you can imagine. Russian, Mongolian, Turkish, and Slavic. Russian, Slavic, Turkic, Mongolian, and who knows whatever else they were. And they just decided up in one day to become Jews. So the Jews in Europe today were originally converts, for the most part. There may be a drop or two of Semitic blood in their body, but it's most likely Turkic Semitic blood. So, where are we? Me and my little detours. Ivankov's panicky colleagues desperately concluded that they too needed additional troops, and that more importantly, it was time to spring the powerful Vor from jail. Ivankov's release was scheduled for late 1995, but in early 1990, two of the nation's most powerful mafiosi orchestrated a letter-writing campaign in support of his early parole. One of them, Otari Krivanchishvili. That's not that hard. Otari Krivanchishvili was a brawny 46-year-old, hey, 46-year-old, that's me, native of the former Soviet Republic of Georgia, a national sports hero. Kvantrishvili had been a wrestler on the Soviet Olympic team, an All-American, an All-European champion wrestler, and chairman of the prestigious Russian Athletes Association, a government-sponsored union. In the late 1980s, he set up the 21st Century Association, ostensibly as a charity to aid needy Russian athletes. Ostensibly means on the face of it, but really not. Something made to look like something else, but it's not really. Although the association also established banks, casinos, and other enterprises, in fact, this notorious company had never had any legitimate business interests and was structured only as a front to conceal proceeds of extortions of Russian businessmen and other crimes, as a secret FBI report revealed. Ivankov's other powerful patron was Joseph Kobzon. We heard about him. The dapper 60-year-old Russian pop singer. Remember we brought him up? The guy with the fucking, looks like a toupee? It looks like a fucking welcome mat, his hair. A cultural icon, Kobzon was a household name to generations of Russian music lovers. They called him the Russian Sinatra. He frequently brought Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev to tears at public functions with his soulful renditions of patriotic ballads. But for decades, Kobzon had been using his star persona to hide a sinister criminal identity. How ironic is that? Because he's said to be the Russian Sinatra, so he's really a mobster in disguise. Wasn't Sinatra known as the chairman for some reason? Didn't he have a whole bunch of mob connections? Pretty ironic. So he was the Russian Sinatra in more ways than one. Alright. According to the CIA, Kobzon was Russia's crime czar. A secret FBI document described him as the spiritual leader of the Russian Mafia in Moscow, who was highly respected because of his intelligence, contacts, shrewdness, and ability to help when groups get in trouble, meaning organized crime groups. Not just anyone can gain his assistance, however, only high-level mobsters. He settles disputes between groups and belongs to no particular organization. Kobzon, says the FBI's James Moody, is definitely one of the most influential criminals in Russia. He is very, very high-ranking and very dangerous. In the crime-addled Soviet Union, Kobzon's true status as a top crime boss didn't dissuade the school of popular music. That means make them do something else. Didn't dissuade the Soviet government, rather, from appointing him to the Russian Olympic Committee, making him the dean of the School of Popular Music at Moscow's Music Academy, as well as Moscow's Minister of Culture, among other prestigious positions. The singer has twice been elected to the Duma, that's the Russian parliament. During his first stint in the 1980s, in the late 1980s, he was formally introduced to the U.S. Senate by New Jersey Democrat Frank Lautenberg. Kobzon was elected to the Duma a second time in 1998 from a tiny, impoverished, autonomous district in eastern Siberia near Russia's border with Mongolia, despite never having lived there or even campaigning there during the election. Vladimir Grishin, the rival candidate, claimed that Kobzon's campaign manager doled out 100 million rubles in donations to local charities, 35 million rubles to a local hospital, and allegedly promised additional cash and a new fleet of buses for the district if he were victorious. Grishin filed fraud charges with the Central Election Commission, but nothing ever came of it. Whoopsie. One of Kobzone's most lucrative activities, however, was smuggling arms. For example, he was allegedly able to help maneuver a corrupt Russian defense ministry official, Viktor Atiolkin, in the top job of the Rusvorshniya. The only government agency that can authorize the export of weapons from Russia. This position can greatly assist OC, that's organized crime figures, in arranging sales of tanks, rocket-propelled grenades, surface-to-air missiles, and possibly even nuclear materials. Damn, explains the FBI report. In one instance, Kobzon brokered the sale of surface-to-air missiles to Iran, according to a federal wiretap affidavit and a top investigator for U.S. Customs, who specializes in the Russian mob. Okay, here's my reaction to that. Holy shit. These guys got tanks, missiles, and shit. It's not like they were taking them and using them for themselves, I don't think. But they were taking a cut out of these deals with countries like Iran. Woo, that's big time in it. They got some serious government connections. Thanks to the efforts of Kvantrishvili and Kobzon, President Gorbachev and Supreme Soviet Chairman Boris Yeltsin received hundreds of additional letters from famous Russian scientists, artists, and politicians asserting that Ivankov had been successfully rehabilitated. It's almost over. We're almost there, guys. Even the warden of his Gulag prison grudgingly acknowledged that Ivankov, quote, is not the worst inmate, unquote. To assure his release, the judge handling Ivankov's case was primed by Semyon Mogilevich, the Budapest-based Don, who has been implicated in laundering billions of dollars through the August Bank of New York. August means like, well-reputed. You have a good reputation. August, let's see. Respected and impressive. Okay, so this guy, Semyon Mogilevich, Budapest-based gangster, was implicated in laundering billions of dollars through the August Bank of New York. Other payoffs went to former Russian Minister of Internal Affairs and unidentified state prosecutor, according to classified FBI reports, U.S. court documents, State Department records, and interviews with senior U.S. and law enforcement sources. Wow. Some big-time shit going on. The campaign succeeded, and Ivankov was freed in February 1991. This guy, this crazy motherfucker, they got him out. His liberators quickly put him to work at their most critical task to destroy the barbarians at the gate, the Chechen Mafia invaders. I don't know if you guys know, but Russians fucking hate Chechens. They actually call them niggers because they're from the south and they might be a little more dark complected. Chechnya is south of Russia, and from what I know, they hate each other. So I get the feeling the next chapter is going to be about this Ivankov crazy motherfucker they busted out of prison. So they used their fucking pull and they got him out of fucking prison. And they're going to use him to fight the Chechen Mafia invaders. Ivankov duly mounted an awesome offensive, employing a brigade composed of hundreds of hardened criminals. In typical Ivankov fashion, he went above and beyond the call of duty, wantonly massacring rival gangsters. Wanton, if you do something with wanton abandon, you're just like reckless and careless, I think. Wanton. Of deliberate and unprovoked cruel action. So if you are wanton, you do it deliberately, without being even provoked. Just unpredictable. Like, unpredictable is like the worst kind of crazy. In typical Ivankov fashion, he went above the call of duty, wantonly massacring rival gangsters. His methods were, as always, cruel. Car bombings rocked the capital, casualties mounted, and the bloodbath became so violent that it began frightening away Western investors. Ivankov's excesses were infuriating the very politicians who had helped free him, for while stemming the Chechen tide, he had become a liability. Ivankov had big problems, said the DEA's Cardinelli. He had to leave. The Chechens were coming to kill him. Friends in the government told him they wanted an end to the high-profile gangland war, and as a result, in early 1992, the Bratsky Krug, or the Circle of Brothers, the ruling council of the Vurs, is said to have ordered Ivankov to go to the new land and invade America. Great. They don't want him, and where does he come? We get him. Great. So chapter 6, the next chapter is Invasion of America. Wow. That was some fucking chapter. Gangland war. And then it switched from those guys to this guy. They tell his whole story coming up. Hard-ass motherfucker. Now he's the next guy on the list in America. Crazy shit, right? Jack Twist. Why can't I quit you? It's the story. It's fucking interesting. I'm interested. I'm reading it for the first time, so I'm excited too. I love it. I think what I'm going to do is my pattern. I'm going to try to maybe make this my pattern. Before Handsome Truth, I'll do a chapter of whatever book I'm doing. And then after, we'll do the after party. And like right now, I'm looking into the, what are they called? The protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. So that's what we'll do. That'll be the pattern. Truth is coming on soon. So I'll get out of the way, let Truth do his thing. Come join me on the after party. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Hit the like, always hit the like. And after this goes to a video, I'm going to ask you guys to hit the favorite, because the favorite really helps boost me up. If you guys don't know, I'm shadow banned. So the only way I can get new subs is basically by Handsome Truth's gracious promotion, and by you guys. If I can get all of my current subscribers to get me one sub, just convince somebody to check me out. That'll help immensely. I'm trying to move up a little bit, and get this shit out to more people. Alright, guys. I love you, Goku. Let's chill on the lampshade stuff. Alright? Cool. So, thanks for joining me. We'll check it out next time. Looks like there's something, it looks like it's probably going to be pretty crazy, the next chapter. Alright, guys. I'll see you on Handsome Truth. Peace.